Hello, Sherlock here with Elementary Airsoft, and today I'm going to be doing a review. That was originally supposed to be an unboxing, but the other videos turned out bad, and I had some original screw-ups on the seller. But today, by the box, you may recognize the logo here. This is of the Dominator DM870. This was purchased from JK Army. And it came in this box, and around it was wrapped in like a wax type paper. It's since been recycled. Inside the box, gun's already been removed, but just to quick show you, it's just the closed cell styrofoam, nothing too fancy going on inside, and you find like a short quick start guide, and that's about it. You can find a bit more information online, and Dominator themselves have a few videos. And I think there's one other gent out there that has this video, but it's a sponsored purchase, not necessarily saying anything against that, but this one was purchased out of pocket. So that's that. I'm going to set the box aside, and here we have the gun. It also came decked heavily in orange tape, probably for SB 99 compliance for California or whatever, probably their standard procedure with import guns to the US. But the DM870 is a Remington 870 clone for Airsoft, if you will. It's designed to shoot these shotgun shells it came with. It's a Dominator 12 gauge. These are green gas. In the center of them here, there's a small green gas valve, and they hold 6 BBs, I think, and they are fired through an inner barrel inside here, which will give a much tighter pattern at range, personally. I have different plans for this, but we'll talk about it in its stock form, and then we'll go into my direction for it, and then we're going to follow up with a takedown of the gun. So this is going to be pretty much sort of like your initial overview of the gun. There's tape in the frame. And some of the initial thoughts. I'll do a full review of it in my intended usage and that later. So there'll be like 3 or 4 videos on this guy. Its modding process, putting it back together, as well as the other upgrade components. So I originally ordered the 7+1 version and mag pull furniture and the tactical sights and rails and fancier safety and stuff. But JK Army sent me the normal one, and I pretty quickly contacted them after shooting half of an unboxing and kind of freaking out that it was the wrong gun. They were quickly recognized the issue and offered a couple options to resolve it, but I opted for getting the parts to make it the fancicated version, which I had purchased, and so I'll go over that in the reassembly. I'll be installing all of the new parts in that video, so you can see how to do that if you're getting a new magazine tube extension or safety and all that jazz. But we're going to go through a full teardown on this gun real shortly. A few notes on it and what makes this special, what sets it apart from perhaps other pretty realistic shotguns or shell ejecting shotguns you may be familiar with. This is the APS series, the APS cam, this is the AOW, or any other weapon, which I'll probably be referencing a couple times in here, is that this is, I want to say, about 98% steel. Of the parts that should be steel. Barrel, even the mag tube cap, mag tube, arms, trigger, the bolt, most of the little bits inside the bolt, I think almost everything inside the trigger group. The only thing that isn't is the pump, the stock, the butt pad, which is rubber, the trigger guard here, which is plastic, and you're like, oh no, they cheaped out, it's plastic. But actually, real steel 870s are that way, and it's only the Police Magnum edition, Police, I think some Police model, that these are metal. And, well, the front sight bead is brass. But, like I said, pretty much all steel. It's got a really nice sound to the rack. It's pretty smooth. Like if you're trying to work it slowly, you'll feel like sort of each of the steps, so it isn't super buttery. After you fire, this is kind of an interesting thing. There's more slot in the bolt. That might be the same in true. It's been a while since I used a real 870, but when it's locked, there isn't much wobble there, so that's good. Side to side, not much wobble, but a bit. It's normal. You have this guy here, which you use to unlock the bolt. If you had a round chambered, so say round chambered, you don't want to fire it, but you want to dechamber it, and it will actually eject if you have it done upright. So there's that. Load it, just as expected, feed tube. Eject nicely. It uses a bit different extractor than the APS counterparts. This is much closer to the real steel, and it may actually even work with the real steel part. Let's just get a bit more of a close-up there. And honestly, everything here, it feels really solid. It just feels right. I've previously used an 870 before, hunting, and like it feels really good. Not that these feel bad. This feels almost like awkwardly heavy compared to the steel one, strangely, because this is mostly made out of cast alloys, some aluminum, but like I said, this guy's all steel. It's not going to break. Some of the common issues, like what this has with these arms that go around the magazine tube. This magazine tube is soldered or brazed into the receiver, so that's a lot stronger. But overall, really digging the solid build quality of this, and I really can't say too much more about it overall, other than it's pretty beautiful. The finishes on it are great. The barrel, I want to say, is a blued steel. The rest of it appears to be Parkerized. I don't know if that's true to the real one. And was it the lifter here, or elevator, is a blued steel, as well as this button is. The trigger looks blued as well, but it's a bit different color. It's more of a brown, which may be on purpose. The one other super important note here about the gun, just overall, the rear body pin is a fake. And we'll try and zoom it up. Are you gonna focus? Apologies, I'm still learning the new camera. But this pin is a fake. Right there. Why aren't you? Okay. So I can type it on the screen. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is a fake. It's a reasonably good looking one. But this is the actual Detent Pin. And it's a slot system that I'll show you in just a bit. But first, before taking it apart, there's a couple things I want to talk about. I got this shotgun based on some videos I seen by CRW Airsoft, and they were modified one to use the APS shells. And overall, this is, out of the shell ejecting shotguns, body-wise, material-wise, it's the closest to the real deal. It feels great. I don't think I have any qualms about any of these parts lasting, so that's awesome. But I don't like just shooting 6 BBs or 3 BBs or whatever this is. I want to shoot 12, and I want it to use a shot cup. I want it to give me a good shotgun pattern. I think the APS shotguns are really cool and really fun. And after all, a shell ejecting shotgun, it's never top of the practicality, so might as well go all the way. And yes, some of you may disagree with me, but it's my opinion, so deal with it. And yes, these shot cups, they do fit inside the barrel. So they will feed, and like I said, CRW Airsoft had done, I think, probably the first work of this mod. And APS shells, they chamber into our magazine. They don't have any problems there, no modifications needed. Eject. However, without modification, the bolt is locked even after you fire it. So you have to hit the slide release to eject. I don't know if you've seen me do it on the first time, but that is something that I'll be addressing in the necessary mods video for this. But those are few notes, or the one key difference. And obviously it currently has an inner barrel, so we can't shoot our wadding through it just yet. So that's going to be, we're going to talk on a couple points of modding. The other thing that I will like to address, and you might actually see some of this, is I'm going to replace this rear fake pin hopefully with a real pin, so you can actually use like pin mounted or side mounted side saddles, because we're going to use their, actually I have it here already, just got it today, the top rail on this. So without further ado, let's dive into how you take this apart. So we might cut it here, so if it is, we're going to open into, let's take apart your gun. So first step, and you've had to do this to assemble it, is you're going to unscrew the magazine cap. That's out. We can slide the barrel off. That's out for now. And then we can remove the bolt. So what I'm going to recommend is rack it back just to get the hammer cocked back, and then we're going to slide it forward, and then inside we have the carrier dogs, and it should just be the left one, I think, that you need to, if I can get my camera to behave. So it's inside magazine here. We see this guy right here. No, this. So here's the one side, and the other side's over here. You're going to need to push in. So if you're looking at the back of the gun, the left side, or from the upside down, the right side, push in on him, and you can slide the breech forward, and here we have our bolt. I'm just going to pull him off and pull our pump and pump our assembly off. Let's pan back out a bit. So our bolt assembly, or bolt carrier, two pieces, both steel, firing pin, steel, real simple. Pump handle still has the same nut on the front. Gonna have to take this off to put on my Magpul furniture. And then we have our lower here, and while we're at it, what we're going to do is pull the stock spring. So we're going to push this in. You might use a flathead screwdriver, rotate it 90 degrees, and this will pop out. If we look here, there is some small indentation there and there that acts as notches, and on here we have sort of slots, two that go opposite each other that go all the way through, and two that stop. That's why push it down, rotate it, so you get the full channels, and it'll slide right out. Also inside here there is the follower, which similarly is slotted, so you may have to rotate it to get it past these notches. And sadly this is just plastic. I may look at getting a CNC aluminum one at some point in the near future. So that's all the farther that comes apart for now. And it is important to note in here, once again, I don't think that this is welded. I know a couple of people had talked that this is a weld. If we look closely, we can see hints of silver or some other metallic color around the ring. I don't know if we can get that close without losing too much clarity. Actually, you can. So see that right in there? It's that silver color. And you have about a 1/2 inch, and even if it's soldered or brazed, it's still way, way, way more solid than a couple of screws in pot metal. So I would not be concerned there. Other thing to note, well, I guess we'll get on that later. So next step, we're going to want to pull the trigger. Or trigger assembly, and for that we're going to remove the butt of the gun, which I'll admit I cheated. I had already done this, and here's why I didn't put it back on. It's kind of aggravating. It's a really nice cushy butt pad, but the heads of these flathead screws are much bigger than the holes they have for them, and I think that's the real world for shock absorbing, but it's kind of hard to get your flathead screwdriver through here, and you have to kind of work against the rubber to turn them. So I just left this off for the purposes of this video, but you're going to need a long flathead. And inside here there is a large flathead screw. I'm going to go ahead and unscrew it. Note, you're going to want to keep a hold sort of both parts of the gun at this point. So if you're doing it like I am here on camera, you don't drop the front half of the gun on the ground. Okay, so that's off. Gonna keep it on safe so our hammer doesn't go flying everywhere. There's our bolt, which has a lock washer and then a larger washer on it. Then this should just pop off. My understanding is you should be able to use real steel 870 stocks without too much of an issue. Okay, so now what's interesting, because of how the rear pin is, you can sort of pull up. You have to sort of slide it back, because that's where the nut, well, getting ahead of myself, I apologize. You need a pin punch. Where are my pin punches? Just there, here we go. Here's one. I'm just going to knock out the front trigger pin. Just 2 little grooves, and I'll show you the little rings in a second here, but you're just going to pull it out backwards, and then you can sort of rock it up, and here's our trigger assembly. Once again, this is, most of the important functioning bits are steel. This is the only one I'm not sure of. I'll have to get a magnet and double check it just because it's a different color. And we can see our retention points here, where this snaps in. And if we go ahead and look in here, we can see right here, we have the little grooves. That sits in, and looking at the interior, I feel like it's important to point out the machining. It's a bit rougher overall in it. In general, most of the parts where it needs to be, it's smooth, but overall it's a bit rougher. I think that comes from working with steel. It's harder to get a good finish on, / more costly. At least with requiring more fancier tools. Here's our ejector spring. So I think that has some say in the matter, or play into it. There's a couple of spots where it's a bit rougher that I may dust up with a file. So I think QC-wise, at least for something at this price point, I would have expected a bit better finishes on some of these surfaces. But that's that. So that is our entire receiver apart. And I'm not going to go through taking apart the trigger unit. It's very similar to the APS as well as the real steel. I'll touch on the rear pin in the mods video, but we're going to replace this with an actual rear pin setup. So that'll be coming shortly. But if you want to know more of how that works, you can go ahead and watch that video. Or there's plenty of videos out there on YouTube on that subject. So next, I want to touch on our barrel here, and how to remove the inner barrel. So I'm going to zoom back out. Brought in our inner barrel, a little flathead screwdriver. There's a screw right here. We're just going to unscrew it. And it's a screw with a little pin on it. And that's what holds our inner barrel and pushing in. So the inner barrel is spring-loaded backwards, so it's pushing up against your shell, is the theory, to hopefully get a good set shell, good seal, and sort of mate with it for the beeps to fly through. And it's held in place by this little screw, so it has a little bit of wobble and play. So in theory, if you're looking to keep this stock, you may be able to punch out this pin here and pull this bushing off and add in like an R-hop patch. So you may possibly be able to hop it, but it'd be a fixed type hop. But it may be useful or worthy amount to some, but overall I'm going to be removing this. However, it isn't as simple as pull that screw, pull the barrel out, and happy day, we can shoot APS shells. There is a bushing which is located right beneath this mounting lug, I guess I'll call it, that the front end of this spring pushes up against. That gives it its spring-loaded feature. So we have to remove that, and that is actually indeed welded. I was sincerely hoping it wasn't, but through the help of some gentlemen on the French Airsoft forums, I was able to come up with or test out or validate a good way of removing it, I think. And once again, that'll be in the separate mod video, but there you have it. We have our fully stripped gun, about as far as you can take it down without taking the pump off. You use a 4-end wrench to remove this nut right here. I don't have one, but I may have to make something up for that case, but overall, not too bad. For the most part, it strips down very, very much like the real deal. Same thing for removing the bolt, removing the trigger assembly is pretty close. The real one, you don't have to pull the stock, but oh, one last thing. On the bolt itself, so why the gun cannot eject the APS cartridge after firing is due to how the firing pin works. So the APS uses a smaller diameter firing pin and a smaller diameter pin on the shell than Dominator does, or PPS, which they're a clone of. So here's the APS firing pin. They also have this lovely little donut guy that sits on here and will mate with this. The bolts, I believe, are not interchangeable. I haven't ripped the one out of my APS gun to change, but I'm just going to modify this one. So basically the issue is the pin is bigger around, so it can't go all the way forward on the APS shell. And what that means is, I'll take my safety off. When our hammer comes forward, it can't push the firing pin all the way forward because it bottoms out on the shell. And what that means is if the firing pin doesn't go all the way forward, this here is our bolt stop or bolt catch. It stays up, which keeps the bolt from coming back. But if you notice, if the hammer comes all the way forward, that lowers. That's because the same spring that pushes on the hammer forward pushes the bolt stop down. So it's not going all the way forward, and resolving the issue for the firing pin to work with the APS shells will allow them to be ejected as well. So we will be covering 3 mods in my little mod guide. Rear body pin, the firing pin modifications, and the outer barrel modifications, so we can use that with APS shells, and then you should be good to go. And then I'll do a follow-up reassembly and using Magpul furniture and installing all the fancy APS doodads. Thanks.